Welcome back to the Definitive 32X Buyer's Guide, a video series covering every game on the 32X in a format intended to help answer the question at hand for everyone watching: is this game for me? Over the next two videos, we'll be looking at games that can be considered below average in quality or having very limited appeal. This is a multi-part series with each one covering a specific category, though the games are not presented in any particular order. In the description of each video, you can find a table of contents letting you know what video showcases which 32X games. These lists will be updated as new segments release. Also, to try and make these as accessible as possible, I've included time codes so you can skip right to the game that you're most interested in. With that out of the way, let's get started. This is Retro Impressions, the definitive 32X Buyer's Guide, below average, and games with very limited appeal. With the release of the Mega CD, Sega formed a new studio to focus on full-motion video games under their True Video production tag. In total, 12 games were released on the platform under this designation. Of the 12, Fahrenheit was the only one to come with both the Sega CD and 32X versions combined in one package, and this combo was exclusive to North America. It's an oddity as no other Sega game shipped with two console versions included. It's such a rare occurrence I can only think of Rodea the Sky Soldier as another example of a console game that shipped with two separate copies for two different platforms in one package. So back to Fahrenheit. You're new to the team and it's your job to head into burning buildings and handle the situations from the inside. Save a cat, find a baby, find and turn off utilities, etc. It's very much the cinematic idea of what firefighting is, rather than what firefighting is in reality. In total, there are 3 levels, starting with a house, then an apartment complex, and finally a university. Once you enter the building, you've got to make quick decisions as prompts appear on your screen. Sometimes it's to interact with an object, but mostly it's navigating a facility to evacuate its residents. This game requires the manual to play as each level's layout is detailed there. There's absolutely no way to finish this game without it, and I highly recommend making a copy or finding an online copy, then printing it out so you can notate what rooms will help progress the story and which are a waste of your time. I feel it's safe to call this a full-on walking simulator as you're really experiencing a story with very limited gameplay elements. There are no guides online to assist you here, so if you want to check it out, you'll need to have a pen in hand and experience this the old school way, by making notes. There are really no issues here from a gameplay sense, it's just hard to recommend something like this because so few people will find any enjoyment in playing what is essentially not a traditional game. There's also zero replay value once you finish it, but if that all sounds appealing, there's certainly a few worthwhile hours to be experienced here.
Rookie, don't forget to check for hazards or you won't make it out in one piece.
Chief, don't worry. McGuire and I will stick like glue to this rookie.
I've always been interested in unreleased games, especially on the 32X. The platform was so short-lived, many of the advertised releases never saw the light of day. Some, such as Capcom's Aliens vs. Predator, are highly notable as they never came home, remaining an arcade exclusive. When Surgical Strike was released on the Sega CD in 1995, the game itself didn't catch my attention. It was the promise of a free upgrade to the yet-to-be-released 32X version. It wasn't publicly known at the time, but Sega had ended support for all hardware except the Saturn around the time Surgical Strike shipped for the Sega CD, making it one of the last games to release on that platform. For those who purchased the game, hoping for the 32X version, all they needed was to return the included mailer along with $4 to cover shipping. Around 6 months down the road, packages began to arrive from Sega, but the game included was Wirehead for the Sega CD, along with a note stating that the 32X version of Surgical Strike had been cancelled. For a long time, it was unknown what exactly happened to the game, not something uncommon for cancelled releases. Then in 2008, someone popped up in an online forum with what they claimed to be an official retail release of the game from the least likely place, Brazil. In that region, the hardware cost alone was around $1,000 US in 1995, and only 3,000 32X systems were sold there in total. Pairing that with the 30,000 Mega CD units in the wild, then considering those two systems along with a Mega Drive were required to play this, and the numbers weren't looking great. After the post, the user went quiet. Without official confirmation, it was thought to be a hoax, especially since there was no record of the game getting a release. It was also generally believed to be unfinished and thus the reason it was cancelled in North America. Fast forward to 2015 and the president of Tectoy finally confirmed that the game did release, but only 500 copies were made and it was unknown how many were shipped and sold to the public. All this comes back to the copy shown online in 2008. After nearly a decade of radio silence, the poster's family revealed the owner as being the late Norian Munoz, who passed away in 2010. Norian had one of the largest game collections in Brazil, and his family took their time dealing with it, waiting 6 years to ensure that the collection went to a home that would appreciate it in the way Norian intended. Thankfully, the games went to a home that deeply cared about preservation, and in 2017, Surgical Strike for the 32X was dumped and released to the public both as a free digital download and limited physical release. So Surgical Strike is the only Brazilian exclusive 32X release, and even though there are less than 5 known copies in existence, it was officially sold to customers in Brazil as an official Sega release while the 32X was still being marketed, making it the rarest Sega game with an official release that I'm aware of. As we move further away from 2017, the ROM has become increasingly difficult to find, so be aware that this may not be easy to locate. I used to feel that this game was a letdown, but I've spent additional hours playing it, and I have a newfound respect for it. This is one of only 2 Sega-produced FMV games released on the 32X, with the other being Fahrenheit. Unlike Fahrenheit, this game only requires the 32X disc, and not the original disc, although it's possible that the US release would have had the 2-disc requirement. It's set in an alternate reality, in what would have been the future year of 1998. You've got a sweet hovercraft, and it's your job to go door to door taking out terrorists who are posing as civilians. You're given a map showing where the targets are, where you are, what direction you're pointing, and what direction you need to be pointing to engage a target. At first, it will seem like a terrible system that doesn't work well. A great example is if you're heading towards a target, you will not be able to engage it if the arrow representing it is facing the opposite direction. You will need to head past it, wait for the prompt, turn around, and then engage the target. However, as you play and begin to understand the map, controls, and objectives, it's really intuitive. This isn't a long game, taking around half an hour for someone who really knows what they're doing, but you're sure to get multiple hours of enjoyment from this as you progress through the 3 levels. The video segments sprinkled in here and there are quite campy, like any B-movie turned video game should be. One interesting bit is the video segments you experience throughout the game are slightly altered from the Sega CD version, making it worth checking out if you enjoy the original release. Of all 32X-CD games, it's the only one to offer unique content rather than the standard visual upgrade. This is certainly one of the best games in the segment and the best 32X-CD game, but I feel it will appeal to an extremely limited audience. However, even if this isn't your jam, there's value in checking it out for the history and campy video. Some quick tips before closing this out. You only take damage if you pass by an enemy without making a turn or killing it. If you have the opportunity to make a turn that's required to reach the objective, and there's an enemy on screen, make your turn. If you kill the enemy, you will progress past the intersection and have to continue on in the wrong direction. Also, you have the opportunity to set your starting position, and the direction you're facing at the start of each level. Make sure you utilize this to create the path of least resistance.
Take this! Yeah! Sounds like 60, don't it, boy? Hey! Where's that rookie I'm blocked in down here?
I certainly like a great FMV experience, but the 32X really didn't get those. Slam City isn't an exception here. Like all Digital Pictures releases, it's another interesting project with lukewarm game design. This is another Tom Zito game. You know, Tom Zito, the famous photographer, the mastermind behind Crisscross Make My Video for the Sega CD, and other such classics. Oh, you don't? Well, back to Slam City then. So this is a live-action one-on-one street ball game. It's the largest game released on the system, requiring 4 discs, each containing one of 4 opponents you can challenge. You can play against them in any order or only against the ones you like if that's what you desire, because beyond earning respect, there is no rules or requirements as to how you go about doing so. If you only want to play against Smash, who is on the 4th disc until you qualify for Pippen, you can do that. In fact, each disc is self-contained, with the Scottie Pippen segment included, allowing the player to boot from any of the 4 discs and beat the game without swapping it out. Something else that's amazing about this game is each disc contains a Red Book audio track of the smash hit Respect by Scottie Pippen. That's right. Owning this game means you'll always have 4 copies of the classic 90s tune on hand. Outside of that one song, the remainder of the soundtrack was done by John Baker and is processed by the internal chips of the unit. It's quite good. The game itself is an interesting concept, and there's certainly some silver lining to playing it, but it's not in the gameplay. This is very much a QuickTime event experience with all on-screen notifications removed, so trial, error, and your memory is all that you have. It's certainly a step up from Supreme Warrior, but not by much. It's another one where skills are not going to help, and since that's the case, there is no real value in replaying it once you've experienced the package. Thankfully, with patience, you can win a match here and there, eventually progressing to the end of the game. This is a quintessential early 90s experience, and for that reason alone, it's worth checking out. You won't find many other games that lean so heavily into the idea of what the 90s were, even if that execution isn't a shining example of reality. It's an easy game to dismiss out of hand for most retro gamers, as there seems to be a massive distaste for sports games not named NBA Jam. However, this is a package so unique that it's worth experiencing for the acting, small but jamming soundtrack, and presentation that captures 90s marketing in a way only something made in that era could do.
I loved how you forced him to go all the way over you on his stunts.
You can't change a bet. No, I didn't. I just made another bet that's opposite of the last one, but for the same amount as the first one.
Up next, we have more below average games with very limited appeal. That's it for now, and as always, thank you for watching Retro Impressions.